The offseason, yeah, it's still a little young, but what's the most under-the-radar story so far? And then, well, the offense, we talked recently where they improved, where they not improved. Well, let's talk about with someone else, Maxwell Klitsky. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose, just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans. It's your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe. Go ahead, chime in the YouTube comments with your favorite under-the-radar story so far this offseason, because that is what we are going to start with right now. We'll talk a little bit more about the offense, maybe get into a mailbag question or two at the end here with our guy Maxwell Klitsky. And that's right, let's just address that right now. It is not just me babbling on and on and on this show. No. It is friend of the program, Maxwell. He's here. Under the radar stories was the assignment that I just threw at you, Max. I said, that's probably a good place to check in on where we are maybe not giving enough love to some things around this program, whether it's coaching moves, whether it's rule changes if you want to go that far, or just your tried and true portal additions, portal departures, what have you. Kept it pretty open-ended, but I went with under the radar stories. I'm going to travel far away from mine, but before I do that, Maxwell, because people are probably so sick of hearing my voice over the last few weeks of shows, go ahead, man. Bat first for us, baby.
I mean, I don't think anybody can get tired of those dulcet tones over there, Matt.
You would be incredibly shocked then if that's your takeaway there. But I appreciate you lying to me right to my face. That's very nice of you.
Anytime. Anything that'll get me another appearance on this show.
Excellent. We'll see you tomorrow then.
Yeah, perfect. Under the radar, I think just looking very generally, it's nice to have what seems to be a coherent portal strategy.
Sure, I like that.
We're not just shotgun blasting, every big name that comes across. You do see, there are certain guys at certain positions, obviously offensive line, defensive line, and some the other skill positions as well. We've been looking at in the portal, and you can kind of tell the guys now that it's like, nope, not that guy. But, guys like kind of breaking news today, like a guy like Connor Moore, just heartbreaking loss to North Dakota State in the FCS championship last night, put his name in the portal as 2 more years left. And it's kind of shown that Michigan State now under Jonathan Smith is taking guys that are looking to come up a level, as opposed to, what we saw a lot of times with Mel Tucker and that staff is taking swings on, helmet program guys that flamed out or were buried on depth charts for whatever reason. So just looking at like the transfer portal, the 14 additions that we have, 15 including if you count Evan Boyd, who still isn't showing up in 24/7 for some reason. But
interesting. Okay.
There's only 4 Power 5 P4, guys in that class. And it's, I should have looked to see how to pronounce this name.
Good luck. Go get him.
Lafaele from Wisconsin.
You know what? That was going to be one of my guys. Anelu Lafaele. And I'm only 80% certain that I'm nailing that name pronunciation, as many of us
That sounds a little more right. But, and then
I'm saying it with confidence, and I'm going to switch that because when I used to try to say Ma'anaoteote, I would say it with a question mark. But now we're just going for it, Maxwell. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. But yeah, Lafaele.
No, and it's, Matt Gulbin, the offensive lineman from Wake Forest, obviously going through a coaching change, reshuffling, that makes sense to come over. Icy Moa, who we just got from BYU. And then I think it was, Grady Kelly, who was a guy that was kind of, I would say buried. He was one of those cases where it's like he was more or less kind of buried on that Florida State depth chart, but he's coming over, and that's really like, of those guys, you're seeing guys coming over, like Krishan McRae is like a perfect example.
Totally.
And State was the worst program in FBS, and he was their lone bright spot, and he wanted a bigger platform and to showcase his talents. And we took guys like that. We didn't take, Ronald Williams or an Amir Speed or, those types of players. And it's interesting now, just like I said, like it's a coherent strategy and you can at least predict what the kind of guys is. So I think that's really underrated too, because it's not getting fan base kind of stuff narratively being like, why aren't we going after this guy? Why aren't we doing that? And it's, I think they've answered a lot of like the money concerns too with NIL by not only throwing it around when we needed to on some bigger name guys, but also in the retaining of players that we've seen in this winter cycle. So I think just having a coherent strategy has been something that's pretty underrated because it's something that we just didn't have, and it felt like we were changing strategy every offseason under Mel.
And with the NIL too, it's not like this was an offseason where, we're just going to get like 6 portal additions. We can spend big on them. Like, no, like they still had to cast a wide net to still flush out depth for this roster. I mean, that was shown in spades last season. You could go ahead and pick your position group for that one. So yeah, it's not like they're, making some big name gets, but they are, being methodical about it, just like you spent the first few minutes saying right there, Maxwell. And we've echoed some of that too, especially specifically with the corners. Nijay Burt, okay, he's coming up from FCS level. You got Malcolm Bell coming over from UConn. Joshua Eaton, if you want to throw his name in too. We've seen hey, I just lost my starting spot at an SEC school. Hey, Michigan State, what up? I got to be better than what you guys have already up here. And, well, that might have been true. It still, was far from being good enough. So, while it's no guarantee that, the Birds of the Bells will work, we've seen the other strategy, so to speak. I'm not I'm not disinterested in seeing just how this shakes out, because it's not like these guys were slouches at Eastern Illinois, or is that where? Yeah, Eastern Illinois for Nijay Burt and then Malcolm Bell for UConn. Like, they actually produced pretty well and were the better defenders on their team. Whether you look at just, your basic box score stats, your PFF numbers, what have you. I don't hate that for under the radar, just like the strategy, how methodical they are being this offseason. And I got to just, we're going to hop on actually a flight right now. I don't think there's any connecting or any direct flights from Lansing for this one. We got to probably connect through LA. But my under the radar, and maybe that's just because I'm manifesting something in the past rush, is just going to the Hawaiian Islands, because I thought the 2 pickups of Leonard Ayu, who that might be silly for under the radar. I think he got his flowers on signing day. This was a kid that signed 2 years ago to Oregon State, went on a mission trip. Now he's back ready to play outside linebacker and or that edge rush. Great. And then the guy we just talked about, Anelu Lafaele. I mean, I'm talking about guys that have yet to take a snap in college football. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like I'm calling my shot right now. I'm not saying this is going to be the reincarnation of Will Golston this upcoming year, but I am going to say, and that we already know at this point, no shortage of opportunity to step up and get your reps on that edge, young men. So let's see if we find anything there. I think it's promising that you get a guy in Leonard Ayu coming here, already aged like a junior. And that, I mean, Lafaele, he was, was he, top 3 in the state of Hawaii? He was a top 30 edge rusher nationally. So I'm fascinated to see what we get there. So that's my under the radar. Just flying over to the Hawaiian Islands and talking about those 2 gentlemen. Fair foul. Am I just trying to manifest this too much?
No, but I also
Thanks.
think too, just with everything with this program right now, we've been burned by, sins of the past of getting too leaning into things a little too hard. So
we have not done that in this show ever.
We're kind of waiting and seeing with a lot of these things, but I do find it really encouraging that we are seeing early returns from that, the quote unquote Polynesian pipeline that we're getting from Leggy. When he was hired, it was kind of one of those things to be like, oh, are we just going to become, this pipeline again for all of it? And it's like, kind of who's to say, but now we are seeing some early returns for it as well. Now, if we can pull, some of the super big fish when Hawaii has, that one of those like can't miss guys, like, right. I can't remember if any of the Uyungleleles were technically Hawaii class or if they were all California classes.
I think they were Cali technically, yeah. But I get your point, though. Right?
Yeah, it's just guys from that kind of region of the country because it's, and if they're shown to have success here. It's kind of been shown that that's kind of leads to a snowball effect too. So I think that's really underrated, especially right now, because we haven't really seen any true production come out of that. But it's definitely promising that we're able to get that first step and able to, land some of those guys, both in the portal and through high school recruiting.
So it's promising. And guys, this is what we call a segue. Do you know what else is promising? Saving money with Rocket Money to start your 2025. You like that, Maxwell? There we go. Guys, Rocket Money is here to help get your new year off to the right start financially. Did Rocket Money help find you any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Well, no shame in that, because it's definitely happened to me. I've had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having your personal assistant for your finances all in your pocket. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved over $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. So what are you waiting for? Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. It's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. All right, let's drag it back out here. It's the one, the only Maxwell Klitsky, friend of the program here of Locked On Spartans. Thank you very much, Maxwell, for your time, your insight, and just your friendship. Maxwell, I appreciate that. Just do what they always tell you when you grew up as a kid. Make friends on the internet. That's just number 1A, what you should do to a happy and healthy life. Speaking of happy and healthy life, do you know what would really give all of us a happy and healthy life, Maxwell? It's an offense. It's capable, just an offense that's
competent.
I didn't want to use a C word, but we'll use it. Competent is a good one. A little bit ago, this was right after Christmas, I did an episode going position group by position group on the offense. Did they get better? Did they get worse on paper so far in the portal? That's right. I saved that great segment for the day after Christmas when everyone's listening. That was real genius production work on my part right there. Burnt it up for 17 listeners. Regardless, the Cliff Notes was quarterback and tight end. Well, sure, they'll improve. It's the same guys. You can see some growth there in the offseason. You get the point. Receivers, yes, I think there is improvement right there. I am interested, though. Running backs, I get a pause because it's not to throw dirt on Brandon Toulis, Mekhi Frazier. Those guys both had 7 carries last year's true freshman. What are you going to do? You do lose Nate Carter, who I think is a fine running back. You lose K'Ron Lynch-Adams, who is a yards after contact mercenary. Okay? He was fantastic. This is where it gets awkward, and I apologize to the Tautalver family. I just don't really get that one, though. Because, with this offensive line, it's pretty clear that you need yards after contact, and I'm sorry to be so hung up on that one stat, but of the FCS running backs that had at least 50 carries last year, he was 207th in average yards after carries. So, I didn't really understand that one, so that's why running backs, I went no. Then offensive line, I said maybe. I was very wishy-washy on that one, which was terrible of me, but is there a position group that still gives you pause like me for the running backs as we go further into this offseason, Maxwell?
No, I definitely agree for the running backs. That is, it's one of those things where the run game, there's so many things that go into it. It's, it's game state, it's offensive line play, it is running back play of seeing, do you have the right guy that fits your personnel? And I mean, we saw flashes of it where KLA and Nate Carter, had very good games, but it was the inconsistencies in the run game that really showed through. And a lot of that was kind of toward the offensive line. So the ETT signing wasn't something I was jumping for joy over, but it wasn't something that I wasn't dismissing kind of out of hand of well, why are they doing this? It's definitely a wait and see thing, just like everything we're going through with this staff right now going into their second
very mature season. Of you, by the way. Yeah, that's good. I yearn to be like you one day. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, but the offensive line is still something that just gives me pause because it hasn't been good for.
It's a lot of hope
forever. I mean. It hasn't been something that you could, necessarily rely on or, from a down-to-down basis, think it's something that'll be capable of providing you any positive feeling at all, especially in the run game. It seemed like years we would hold up in pass pro and then we couldn't run the ball. And then, once teams know that you can't run the ball efficiently, it makes everything else harder. So I think we do get some addition by subtraction with some of the personnel that were leaving. And I do think that they're, the additions they brought in were good, but, obviously the staff still isn't comfortable, right? Because they're still actively going after guys in the portal. And, we're rumored to say like, hey, we're still looking at tackles in the portal, even though they're, impossible to get a good one. A lot of them are in there for a reason most times, but that's why this Connor Moore kind of portal announcement is kind of a big deal for Michigan State to go and land a guy like that who is coming up, who has, pedigree at the FCS level, but FCS is, Montana State didn't lose a game until the championship. So that speaks for something. So definitely the O-line, I want to hope that it's better, but that's kind of where I'm landing right now. I don't have anything really truly that says like they're going to 100% be better.
It's hopium, it's copium. I don't care what we're like. It is what it is, right? Like, there's of course just no way to say like, hey, we lost our top two linemen, Newman, Miller. See you guys later. And yet, Golban, like on paper with the Pro Football Focus numbers, or again the box score numbers too. We've gone over those. That's fine. It's also one player. Okay,
right.
Like Luka Vincic, great. Yeah, he was probably going to start at Oregon State. That's not Georgia. That's not Texas necessarily. Like, sure, he was going to start there. Does it really mean a lot though? So just have like a raw candid conversation. Like I am scared, but the hopium comes in like they had a lot of reps last year from a lot of guys, right? Like Rakeem Johnson stepping up, playing some left tackle against Ohio State. Well, he is an interior offensive lineman. Like hopefully you grow from that, young man. Stan Ramble wasn't the greatest year at left tackle, but redshirt freshman coming off an ACL injury. How much more could you expect out of the kid? Maybe you could see him taking some steps as that former 4-star, right? Like Ashton Lepo, there's got to be growth there.
Yeah,
only way to go is
got to show me something, right?
The only way to go is up, maybe, sort of thing. I don't know. And you got to hope that Christian Phillips, Gavin Brocious, yes, they're experienced guys. They were starters last year. They're also coming off big knee injuries too. Like there's enough out there where you can talk yourself into the offensive line being solid next year because of just experience. Matt Golban's here. Look at us go. Stan Ramble
can't get any worse. Yeah,
can't get any worse. But my God, can you say that for a 6th year in a row? Like I don't know.
Yeah,
so that's like what gives me pause and like what has me stressed and losing hair. What are we 9 months from kickoff? Like so, because Maxwell, just like you said, It's not easy to come by a tackle in the portal, especially as the portal keeps going further and further. Like, yes, a Montana State kid, I'd give him $2.5 million to come here right now at this point. But let's say it doesn't work out with that young man.
But like Ohio State could give that kid 3.
No kid. He's going to get what they call a bag. And I'm not sure if Michigan State's going to pony up for it. And even if they did, would he pick Michigan State over some of his other suitors? Another real dialogue here. We're getting heavy here, Maxwell.
Right.
But I am a little worried right now because if you go into spring needing a tackle, like who's famously just like not in the spring portal is starting quality offensive lineman.
Good.
It is what. So the room is what it is right now. Yikes! I think it's fair to be a little scared. So I know it's not the most upbeat conversation. I think Michigan State as a whole has gotten better this offseason, but man, one of those question marks could be the biggest one, that offensive line, because that is the stir. That's not the stir that straws the drink, Maxwell. How about that for you?
Yeah, and especially in an offense that's so reliant on play action and being able to dictate the terms on the run. Yeah, that's good to not have an offensive line consistent enough to get you at least 3 yards on the ground.
I shouldn't be this stressed about an offseason that I think has largely been like positive, but yeah, it's just that if you can find like just one thing to nitpick about us at offensive line, and would you look at that? That's arguably the biggest thing you can nitpick about. The other being pass rush, I think, and they've done solid enough there. We'll see how that all works out. But do you have anything nice to say about the offense right now, just before like we completely spiral and just leave on that salty note? Give us something to smile at, Maxwell. That's the question.
I really am interested to see
Nick Marsh.
Obviously Nick Marsh, but Krishan McCray and how they use him.
Totally.
I'm excited to see growth from Aiden. I think it was a Goldilocks and the Three Bears kind of thing, where in the beginning of the season he was too risky, and then I think toward the back end he was working on a lot of things, but it was almost too conservative at times.
Gotcha.
I mean, the numbers still had pretty good numbers, but you kind of felt like that little piece was missing of him just willing to fit a ball in there that makes him that kind of player. So I'm interested to see, and if we hear stuff in the spring, or if we see it in the spring showcase or whatever they do, kind of still that willingness to take those risks, but at least be more calculated with them. That's something I'm at least looking forward to, and I'm trying to put on my happy face about. But
that's the spirit.
I'm really needing to see it from a lot of other things before I really get super excited. So.
Well, to aid
still
that,
kind of a downer, but there's a
no
sunshine through those clouds. So
I'll edit like all the downer parts of that out. That's okay. And like where the tone got a little like less optimistic.
Right.
John Boyer, ain't moving the needle for you coming over to be the quarterback's coach. I mean, that I see nothing but 38-point games ahead of us with that addition right there. No, let me pose this in a serious way actually, because I just doing a lot of solo shows recently. Get stuck to my own vacuum. This was after the Ohio State basketball win. We touched on the John Boyer stuff for a little bit. Fine, like whatever. Great familiarity with the staff. That goes both ways, with Boyer to the staff to the Boyer, the Childs to the Boyer. What we all know the familiarity. I do wonder, like, if you're bringing on an assistant coach, how many more West Coast guys could we possibly need? I think inroads somewhat regionally, at least on the offensive side of the ball, outside of Brian Wozniak and, of course, Courtney Hawkins. Maybe another guy, but maybe I'm just stuck in my own vacuum and I'm just, like, crying and moaning about something that in the end doesn't really mean anything. Do you have any opinion on the John Boyer thing, or are you just an adult and you're saying, chill out, man? Like, it's just an assistant coach, so stop worrying about it.
No, I mean, I kind of see where you're coming from too with some of the guys. It was like, okay, another West Coast guy, like, cool, continuity, great, but like we need something kind of anchored here. Fun. I get that, but part of me too is like, okay, there's really no limit anymore to how many assistant coaches that we can have. There's the only stipulation is that, like, for a contact period, you can only designate 10 guys that go on the road and that sort of thing. So he will likely not be one of those guys. James Adams, on the other hand, would be one of those guys going into high schools. I don't foresee, Boyer really going into high schools. That's still something that Lindgren is probably going to do. And really, when we're recruiting quarterbacks, it's going to be a Lindgren and Smith, focus anyway, because of their backgrounds. So I do think it gives you the benefit of, okay, Boyer's working with Childs. He's worked with Childs when he was a freshman, and now he's getting to work with just the QBs. And, time's a finite resource, right, in college football. So especially when working with the kids with their with the practice stipulations and everything and meetings. So giving as much time for Lindgren to look at the entirety of the offense instead of kind of camping out with Aiden in his office and going through film. Well, that's great. Like, we need the whole offense to look at, because he wasn't consistent. The offense was not consistent enough at any points last year. There was never a point in any game, I don't think, that you're like, okay, the offense will just carry the defense in this game. Like, the offense will just put up 30 to 40 points and we'll white knuckle this one. they don't do that. They at times even did the opposite. So I only really see it as like a benefit. One, because like the number of assistant coaches isn't a thing anymore. If we were using this as an allocated slot as one of our 10 guys, and if we didn't go out and get James Adams, I would have a much bigger issue with it. But as soon as I heard that it's like, this isn't in lieu of getting a second secondary coach, it was kind of like, okay, I see why they're doing it. It makes sense. And it just shows, I think, that the staff, both Smith and Lindgren, weren't happy with how the QBs were developing overall, I would argue. I don't think this was something that they were like, oh, yeah, we'll be here for a year and then we'll just bring you on, later when they left. I think that was something that that they looked at and they were like, we need to go get a guy, and who's a guy that we know. So it gives a guy promotion, it brings him across, it brings continuity, all of those good things. And I think it's a lower risk move. I don't think, the downfall of the Smith and Lindgren tenure is going to be this higher per se. So
that'd be a good take, though. That'd be a bold, aggressive take. That's what we're looking for here. Let's end on this one. There was a fun mailbag question. This is from our guy Scott, a friend of the program. He wrote in. Now this is all for the MSU Detroit Lions fans out there. A little bit of crossover coming up. What would the Spartans' football record be if Dan Campbell was the head coach? Could he single-handedly will this offensive line to be just average? I went with 6-6. I think the world of Dan Campbell. He's one of my favorite human beings on this planet. That includes family and friends. I am a Dan Campbell disciple. But even with all that, I think 6-6. And look, I think the problem, not to just keep on badgering the same point here, but it's that offensive line here, right, guys? Michigan State last year on fourth down conversions, they were 52%. That was middle of the pack. The Lions are a league best 66%. That works when you have arguably the best offensive line in the National Football League. That's a different debate for a different time. Regardless, leaps and bounds above. But I think just the way that man can motivate a room, I think that maybe brings you to 6-6 because I don't see you're going to get rolled over against Rutgers after the first drive. Maybe Indiana's a little closer, for example. Boston College, you're probably a little more tighter, what have you. But this man, he could motivate an entire frat to go drive for a month, man. He could convince you that drinking from the Red Cedar River itself is the healthiest thing you could possibly do to your body. He could motivate that locker room to at least being engaged for the full year. Where that was apparently a problem, according to some quotes at the end of the year, that, hey, maybe there was a lot of buy-in. Dan Campbell wouldn't let that happen. So as much as I'd love to say that he'd guide us to the college football playoff, I don't know how much even one of the best coaches in the NFL could have done here. 6-6 is what I'm going to cap it out at.
Yeah, I guess, if we're doing just pure plug and play, okay, Dan,
that's what we're doing. Yep.
You're are we just doing Dan and Jonathan a 1-for-1 swap?
That's right. No Ben Johnson, no Aaron Glenn. No.
To be honest, the record may be the same because
it's the same with your chest, Max. Come on.
Because if I don't know if people remember or not, but the Lions went 0-10-1 before they won their first game. It was not pretty. It was a lot of this is right. Going to be a long build, and it's and I don't think there were really any games truly that maybe some of the decisions I'm thinking, obviously the sequencing of the play calling at the beginning of the Michigan game where we settled for the field goal and, we could have called some different play sequencing and we could have been more apt to just roll the dice and go instead of to kick there. Smith at times said, he was I probably should have gone for it instead of kicked or blah, blah, vice versa, blah, blah, blah. He's shown some kind of hindsight 2020 stuff that I don't think Dan would have had that issue with, but
no shot.
I just think some of the edgewise stuff that Dan would bring as leader of men stuff, I don't know if that's worth 2 or 3 wins or something like that in the way they play that schedule. So I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm in that rain cloud kind of mood, but just thinking about it, it's like it
wasn't
just like
sunny
pure.
in East Lansing.
It was a lot of execution stuff, and I don't think Dan's fixing all of that. So
because I'm thinking of like Dan Campbell-esque decisions, like kind of like the anti-Michigan game right here. Because hey, Florida Atlantic, yes, we got the game. We should kick the field goal. We're gonna go for it 4th and 1, and oh my God, that's a loss of 2 on that play. Or against what was it, Ohio State? Hey, it's 4th and 1. Let's step on the gas early, and oh my God. He got stood up before his hands even made contact with the ball. You saw some of those decisions. So you're probably more right than I am. That's probably is the same record, but I like Dan. So I'm going to give him one more win. He takes us to
I love Dan.
Like
bowl. He is everything I've needed as a Lions fan.
As a human
coach.
Yes.
And I just people forget, it was like it was a 3-13-1 record his first year.
Not good.
Plugging and playing in that's not great. No.
Not good. All right, guys.
If we give Dan 4 years, if we give Dan like 4 years, then we're in the playoff like maybe year 2.
Yeah. Really year 4 too. We're dog walking everyone, Maxwell.
Yeah.
It's oh my goodness gracious, 30-point blowouts every single game.
1-for-1.
How much money do you think you'd have to offer Dan Campbell to take the Michigan State job like tomorrow per year? Let's do per year. I think it has to be $35 million per year for him to do it.
I mean, who's the highest paid right now?
That's a good question. It has to be Kirby, right? Or Sark. That's a really good question. Highest paid college football coach. This is good podcasting.
This is great podcasting. So
it is Kirby Smart's doing okay for himself. He's making 13.2. That's okay. Dabo Sweeney 11.1. Good for him.
At least 30.
Yeah, because it's not just like I'm taking the Michigan State job. Going from NFL to college, you'd have to be a clinically insane person to do that. I do not know what Bill Belichick is doing. Go live your life and be happy, you old man. But again, I'm going way off on a tangent right now. Just wanted to add that own mailbag question at the end. How much would Dan Campbell have to make per year to take the Michigan State job? 35.2 per year. I'm going to throw the 0.2 at the end there for moving costs. That's what I'm going to go with.
Generous.
That's a lot of moving all the way from Detroit area, Michigan to
I mean, he had to move recently, so let's hope some of that stuff is still in boxes. So
sure, he's got some workout equipment that's not cheap to move. So yeah, perfect. There we go, guys. Folks, that is Maxwell Klitsky, just an incredible friend of the show. So glad to get back into having more guests on this show. It's not going to be a guest every single show from here on out, of course. But yes, guys, just with the holidays. Didn't want to bother anyone, but hey, who was the first person I wanted to bother? It was Maxwell, and he answered the call. You're the best, Maxwell. Thanks for everything you do, man.
No problem. One more thing, real quick. Are you doing picks for CFP?
Yeah, I am. I'm so wishy-washy in the Ohio State game. I am confident in Notre Dame right there, but I think I am going to end up going with Ohio State and the number of -5.5 right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. The only thing, if Penn State, Singleton and Allen's able to get going in the first half, then I would give them the edge. But I like a Lou Holtz first Ryan Day matchup in the national championship.
Need it. I need it like a plant needs sunlight and water.
I need Lou in a leather recliner just on the sideline for Notre Dame, just eyeing down Ryan Day.
But with the metal chair in his hand, getting ready to just crank it over his head. Oh, it's good. Cinema. I need that in my life. It's been a pretty good college football playoff. All right, I'll stop rambling, Maxwell. I'm sorry. You're the best. All the listeners, all the viewers, you guys are the best. And yes, we will be back tomorrow. We're going to preview the Michigan State versus Washington game with Locked On Huskies. And then, to end the week, talking about that basketball game on Thursday night. So that's how we do it here. Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white. Love you guys all. Go green.